collection, welcome back to Collection Cutdown. Today's video is on a Hallmark movie called All Things Valentine. Stars Sam Page of soap opera fame, I think, and Sarah Rafferty, who was on Suits for a long time. So I know this is uncool to admit, but I watch loads of Hallmark movies, in fact most of them. And I know they have their problems. They are very white. I've never seen an actual queer character on any of them. There's flaws in the script writing and the acting. Like, there's no way they're perfect. But they are light entertainment with guaranteed happy endings. And for me, that is entertainment that I want to support and that I really enjoy, particularly when I'm going through a hard time. That sort of light entertainment with happily ever afters is really something that I tend to seek out. And you know what? Some of them are actually really charming and delightful, so they aren't all rubbish. There just happens to be a higher percentage of rubbish. However, as much as I love Hallmark movies and have watched loads of them, there aren't actually that many of them that come out on DVD, particularly here in Australia. So this one is actually an impulse purchase that I bought when I saw it and realized it was a Hallmark movie on DVD in a major store. I was like, I have to support that. Before buying it, I knew I'd seen it, but I don't actually remember a lot about it. With Hallmark movies, I tend to put them on in the background and just have them as background noise while I'm doing something else. They aren't the kind of thing that I can actually watch without getting distracted, because there's not a lot to them. I don't actually remember a great deal about this movie in particular because Hallmark movies do tend to blur together. They're very similar. However, this one has an epistolary kind of element to it, which I enjoy because the two of them are like rival bloggers or something. Like, he's commenting on her blog or something, so there is that element, like You've Got Mail, where they fall in love via letters but they're rivals in real life, or they're rivals online, or like each other in real life, something along those lines. Both these actors are very classic Hallmark actors. You know, they're fine, you know, not huge talents, but you have enough charisma for this, both attractive people. You know, so I'm not expecting a lot from watching this, particularly because I did find it so unmemorable the first time round. But I'm hoping that this is just a fairly charming, light movie for an hour and a half without too much drama or angst. So with all that said, I'm going to dive in and watch this one, and I will see you all on the other side. All Things Valentine is about a woman named Avery who is a advice columnist online mostly, but also in print. And she's not a big fan of Valentine's Day. In one of her columns, she advises a woman to break up with her partner because he doesn't like Valentine's Day as much as her, and he isn't willing to put in the effort for her. Then she actually meets this guy without knowing it, and the two of them strike up a relationship. But while that is happening, online the two of them are getting into a bit of a, you know, war of words without knowing their real life identities, because obviously he's peeved that this woman broke up his relationship. In many ways, it's a reverse You've Got Mail, whereas in that one they hated each other in real life but fell in love online. In this one, they like each other in real life but hate each other online. This has many of the hallmarks of a Hallmark Channel movie. For those who aren't aware of the Hallmark brand, they do themes. So January is winter themed, February is a Valentine's Day theme, summer themes, bride themes, and then their big one is the Christmas theme that starts now before Halloween. And each of these themes have their own set of tropes and scenes that are commonly in them, and this movie fits very comfortably in the Hallmark Valentine's Day event. They have dancing and chocolates and all of that sort of stuff, those scenes that you expect to see going into the film. As much as I like the concept of it, I do like things where people fall in love through letters or emails or things like that, and I like enemies to lovers stories. I don't really think that this one is particularly special. Particularly the flirtatious dialogue between the two of them, it's just like, oh, it's a bit cringy because it really isn't that interesting, and it's stuff you've heard a million times before, so it all comes across as very cliched. And like, I don't mind cliched, but you know, I like a bit of a spark, particularly you know, in that old world style of screwball comedies that I really enjoy, like I talked about in our Adam's Rib review. So to have like dialogue that really kind of lets you down, it doesn't make a romantic comedy particularly fun. Hallmark movies always make or break depending on how much you like the actors and whether you think that they have chemistry as a couple, and this one kind of sits in the middle of the pack in that sense. Both actors are fine. I don't think they're particularly special, and I wouldn't go out of my way to see a movie of theirs, but, you know, they're fine, and they do the best they can with the material they're given, but it really is not a lot to work with. And in true Hallmark fashion, there is a lot of really ridiculous wish fulfillment stuff, like the idea that an advice columnist would have so many dedicated fans that she'd end up getting like a news release on the internet and on TV just when she reveals her identity and things like that. It's not as bad as some of them, like the ones, obviously as an author, the ones about books and publishing and authors are the worst offenders for me. But this one, it still had its moments where you're like, that's not how the world works. However, it's not all bad because there was a cute dog. The hero is a vet and the heroine has a dog, and that's kind of how they meet. So, you know, it could be worse. The thing is, this whole process was not fun for me because obviously I have to think critically about these movies to be able to do these reviews, and yet I purposefully avoid thinking critically about Hallmark movies because there's really no substance and no artistic merit that I can really, you know, get behind. They are insubstantial in many ways, most of them. Very occasionally you'll end up with a real gem that you may consider an actually good film, but most of them are meant to be quite disposable. And so having to think about a movie this way, it really does take all the love out of it. So I have to say that the process of thinking critically about all things Valentine, you know, made me not like it very much, and that's a real shame because it really is an okay version of a Hallmark movie. Like, it's not their best, it's not their worst, it's very middle of the pack. I also ended the movie feeling very sorry for the woman who first breaks up with Brendan, the hero, over the heroine's advice column, because she really didn't do anything wrong and she ends up the film alone and kind of upset and miserable. She's played by Kimberly Sustard, who is a regular in Hallmark movies and yet has only really had one or two leading roles. She almost always plays like the sister or the friend or the rejected one. And it's a shame because she's really quite lovely. Since everybody else around her was pairing up, it really was quite a glaring omission to have her be single at the end. I would have liked to have her meet somebody, even just make eyes at somebody to think there's hope for her future, because that really was a little bit mean. And Hallmark movies often have some kind of, you know, agenda that they're pushing, and in this case it's love of Valentine's Day. So obviously these two characters who both hate Valentine's Day, and instead of staying misanthropic and deciding that they were going to hate Valentine's Day together, which I think I'd prefer, like, you know, it gives them something to bond over properly. And, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Valentine's Day. I think it's deeply commercial. So I would have enjoyed it had they stayed anti-Valentine's Day but fallen in love regardless. That would have been, you know, really fun for me. But obviously the two of them, you know, decide they love it after all because they met because of Valentine's Day, etc, etc. I'm never going to get something different for a Hallmark movie, and I never expect it. But every now and again I think, oh, you know, that could have been even better than it was, and that's how I felt about this one. So am I going to keep this one? I don't think so. I mean, it's not one of my favourite Hallmark movies, and I don't really think that I'll ever get an urge to watch it again. I really like the concept. I hope that they redo that, or somebody redoes that in a better way. But having like the you've got mail but opposite, I dig that, and I think that that could make a really good film if somebody puts a little bit of effort and time into it. But I just don't think that this was the most successful one, and I'm kind of just happy to let that DVD go. I don't need that on my shelf anymore. Next up we have a movie that got a lot of love when it was first released, but I've seen some more negative retrospectives recently, and that is Amelie. I haven't seen this since I first watched it many years ago after it first came out, and so because, you know, it was so beloved when it first came out and now I think people are changing their minds about it, this one's going to be interesting to rewatch. So I hope you'll join me all for that next time. In the meantime, please consider liking, subscribing and commenting. I love hearing from people about movies. What's your favourite Hallmark movie if you've ever watched one? But otherwise, bye for now and happy watching.
Mm-hmm.